Hi, thank you so very much for joining me today. And thank you for considering or even being a career launcher reviewer. We are so grateful to you for helping us with this critical program. We are finding that students are reaching 225 words per minute without any comprehension for the voluminous responsibilities that we have for creating and protecting the record. These students are reaching graduation speeds, and some of them have never seen a transcript. So we are so grateful for your willingness to participate in this program. We really need these new professionals out into the field prepared to be the professionals that we need them to be. Having new professionals out not being quite competent it could damage us. So it's really important that we help to fill this gap between getting our new professionals out of school and into the seats, knowing everything we can possibly teach them before they get there. So my responsibility today is to show you how easy and how fun it is to be a career launcher reviewer. This should not take you all day. It really can be done in 15-ish minutes. So let me show you my process, and then you can augment that or change that to whatever works for you, but it really should be a very easy process. I am going to share my screen, and I am going to put these documents up on my external monitor. So I want you to know that if I'm not looking right into your eyes, I am still visiting with you. I just think it will be easier. There's more real estate there, and I can put things side by side so that you can more easily and quickly review what we need to look at. So when I receive a packet from a candidate, the first thing that I do is look to see which module they have completed. And then I go to my reviewer packet where I have my materials to facilitate this review. So the first thing I do is I pull up my reviewer guidance for Module 7, because in this guidance is where the Career Launcher team put down all of the things that are important for you to review during this module to make sure that our new candidates, our new professionals, the candidate for this test, saw and learned the things that were important to be exposed to in this module. So one thing that we're going to look for in this module is the name Jonathan. It is spelled without an H. It's so important that our new professionals pay attention to this kind of detail and making sure that when they're preparing a transcript that they are as accurate as possible and witness names are spelled right and captions are done accurately. I understand from firms that one of the biggest time-consuming things that they do is all of the errors that they find on cover pages. And like I said, a lot of these students have never even seen a transcript before. So paying attention to detail. When they type John, do they remember to leave that H out? There is a request during this deposition for an answer to be stricken, and we address that in the transcript. They go from identifying interrogatories to a direct address. They need to understand what colloquy is and what happens when we break out of the question and answer and into colloquy and then going back into question and answer. This transcript is going to be marked attorney's eyes only. This is critical. This, in my opinion, was the most important teaching element for this module, and it was inadvertently left out of the video. So the candidate has been given instructions that they need to designate the transcript as such. So we need to watch for that. Macro versus micro. The attorney mistakenly says macro and corrects themselves. Again, this attention to detail, little words can have huge impact on a transcript, and they just need to be accurate. Exhibit 21 was not attached to the transcript. It was a prior marked exhibit. Exhibits come in so many colors and textures, and we've done a lot during these modules to introduce the different kinds of exhibits and how they are handled. So this is the one element in this one. We did a pre-marked exhibit, so we're going to watch for that. We had a last-minute cast change. Robert Smith became Bonnie Smith, but the receptionist didn't get the memo. So the receptionist says Robert Smith. the candidate has been informed it needs to be Bonnie Smith. So we need to watch for that. So we also do a candidate guidance, and we tell the candidates these are important things that you need to be paying attention to. You need to make sure that you handle them appropriately in the transcript. So they know. Now we need to, on the back end, make sure that they knew how to address it or advise them if things need to be handled a little differently or if they miss it in whole. So, all right, next thing we do is we pull up our transcripts. So I pull my transcripts up side to side. I go back to that reviewer kit that I have, and I pull up the reviewer key, the test key, and I put it side by side with my candidate transcript so that I can just go through it. Let me tell you this. I do not proofread. I do not go line by line and check everything like it's a third grade spelling test. I am not the punctuation police. I do an overview to make sure that our candidates are getting the big picture elements that they need to from every module, the basic elements of transcript preparation, and then I add feedback for overall things. If there's a whole bunch of spelling issues and a really, really bad punctuation situation going on, then I might include that in my guidance and say, you really might want to check into a punctuation course or a grammar course, or maybe start a spelling. Maybe you need to learn how to use spell check a little better. But whatever I might say, if I see some egregious issues with some of those elements, I will say, you really ought to get some guidance on that. But I don't proofread line by line. So I'm going to just kind of show you some things that I noticed. There's more than I noticed, but again, I also don't think that we need to just bombard these candidates with negative, 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 negative. We need a lot of positive, great stuff, maybe the top priority things, give them a little guidance for things that they can improve on and work on later. So that's my philosophy. Here we are. Cover page, State of Colorado to the left of the Superior Court Division. That's a little odd, I think. Is it wrong? I'm not for positive. I think it might not be right, but here's our philosophy again. If it's not wrong, it is right. We had students all over the country beta test this program for us. We had a group beta test for us from Canada. And when they sent in their transcripts, it was like, what in the world is that? Nobody on the team had seen anything remotely similar to what they do in Canada. So this program is focused on telling our new professionals that there are lots of right ways to do things. They need to ask questions. They need to find out how the cover page needs to look for the jurisdiction that they are working in, for the courthouse they are working in, for the firm they are working for the state they are working in, for the country that they are working in. They need to ask questions and they need to get answers. We showed them a generic way to do things. They need to ask questions when they're producing their transcripts. So I might mention this because I know I work in Colorado sometimes and I don't think that's right, but it's not wrong. So there we have it. I come down. Another thing that I notice is we generally have all this what, how, where, why, when on the first page. And that's not here on the first page of this. In some places, it's by statute that it has to be on the cover page. I noticed that this candidate has it down here underneath the appearances, which again, I think is a little strange. I'm glad that they knew that this needed to be there, but I think that it probably should be on the cover page. So I see that that's there. I did notice, and I will point this out for you. That is not what I want. I want us to look at this. I noted that it doesn't say the 30B6 witness on the cover page. It says the deposition of the Chicken brothers, which I'm really impressed this candidate recognized it was a corporate rep, so it wasn't necessarily that individual, the witness. The witness is the company being represented by this corporate rep. So I did point out that generally it will say most of that on the cover page. This is the 30B6 deposition of the Chicken brothers as represented by their corporate designee and the name of the witness. I have to think through that every time I type these. So I pointed that out for this candidate, that there are different ways to handle that, that they might want to look into that. Okay. And later on, you'll see I did a high five for this highly confidential attorney's eyes only on the cover page. Really, really important that they get that during this module. We do not need new professionals sending out transcripts that are highly confidential, that are not designated, and having them get into the wrong hands. It's really important that they understand how critical making sure that these things are properly designated is. Okay. I come down to the appearance page. Again, I'm just going to do just a couple of these, but I did note Jonathan R. Jones is all capped and Bonnie D. Smith is upper and lower. And I did mention pick one. It kind of is a little inconsistent. Is it wrong? No, but maybe they should both have the same format. It would look a little better. But then we have this also present and it says name. I'm not sure where that came from. Maybe it was a template that they were using and they just didn't pay attention to it. But we know from the key, there was an also present individual, Jesse Pinkman. So in my guidance, I point out to them, there was an also present, and here's how that could potentially look for you. So you know, because of that 30B6 thing, and I thought the whole cover page really needed some attention, I asked our coordinator to send the full key to this candidate so they could get a visual of a way that these cover pages can be done. So I asked them to have that whole key. Again, this is about them learning. It's not about right or wrong, failing them, and it's about them being exposed and learning these things. So I'm going to give them the whole thing and say, look at this, pay attention to this. You need to know this stuff. Okay. I come down to the next page, which is our exhibits page, and this is a little underwhelming, perhaps. The examination is of Hank Schrader, but it doesn't really say who it was by. I don't know that that's like a critical failure, but then we have the exhibits. So I did point out in this review that most firms are going to want something a little more indicative of what that exhibit was. And I give an example of what could be included in that description section that they don't even have. I would like to see a description section and what it is. And then I also note that Exhibit 21 says not attached. But what was it? Where did it come from? And I advise that this be a previously marked exhibit section so they will know that that was an exhibit marked in the case, not necessarily in this deposition, and they can go find it. And then we carry on. I see we've got our little swearing in blurb. I call it a blurb. Most people call it a parenthetical, but if I say blurb, you'll know what I mean. We have our examination set up. The key has direct, this has examination, not wrong. And then I start scrolling through and notice the things I notice. I mean, like there's a comma here. There's not one here. Is that critical? Probably not. So I just move on. I see here that it looks like when we were recording, we kind of stumbled over this and the witness picked it up. That's fabulous. That's a good opportunity for some positive feedback. We have our Exhibit 1 marked. Excellent. Excuse me. We come through here, and here's where we're talking about interrogatories. We go to colloquy. They go to colloquy. They go back. Fantastic. I think right through here is where the witness was instructed not to answer. I used this spot right here to give them a big high five. Look at this beautiful use of all these numbers, comma, then a colon, commas, colon, really, really well done. And I made sure to point that out for this candidate. I was very, very impressed with that. I did notice up here, and I felt it was of note, and I mentioned it. Here it says, I suppose we can mark the rather take the exhibit apart. I think it's probably supposed to be rather than take the exhibit apart. I would look at that and maybe say, should have been rather than take the exhibit. A part. A part is one word. And I thought that that was of note enough to note that that is one word. The other thing that I thought was kind of important to notice was, or to comment on, I don't see one really close. I know there's one right at the very, very end. Here's where we did macro or micro. That was included. Excellent. This candidate doesn't use the comma before the direct address, and it's multiple times throughout this transcript. And so I commented on that in my review. And I say there should be a comma after no, after so, when this is a direct address. And this candidate needs to look into that. One other thing that I thought was particularly important to note for this candidate was on page 8, line 24. I'm sorry, right here, line 10, it says, thank you. And fiscal year 2018 was. Please answer audibly for the record. I indicated that I think there should be a period after thank you. And then I thought what might be best is if after this number, they do an answer and then put in something like no audible response or no verbal response, and then have the cue after that that says, please answer audibly for the record. I think that that would better highlight what happened here and why this attorney is saying that in the middle, well, to finish their question. So things like that. Again, this is a big picture, making sure the candidates are being exposed to what we need to expose them to, and they are understanding the big elements that they need to learn about our job in whole. So we had the deposition ending. We've got our exhibit pages, our certificate pages. One thing I did notice with another candidate, they were nearing the end. They were on like module 7 or 8, and they had never included any errata in their transcript. And so I mentioned that, saying this is a very, very important standard part of our transcript preparation. And I really think that it would be wise for you to include an errata in one of these transcripts before you finish with this program. So I included that. And also, so you know, this module 7 was a patent, was a corporate representative. This is really getting up there and is really complicated. And so keep that in mind as we're sharing these really high level depositions with our newbies, and make sure we stay positive and keep them excited. Okay, let me make sure that I have covered most of the things that I wanted to discuss with you. I think the last thing I want to talk about is this checkbox at the bottom of the reviewer feedback. If you check this box, then the student can reach out to you. Maybe they have a question about something that you mentioned to them. They want to ask you about it and what it means. Or maybe they just want to reach out to you for some extra feedback. Maybe they're just wanting to have some contact. So if you would be willing to have some communication with them if they need it, and this is only if they decide to reach out to you, then go ahead and check that box. All right, I am going to stop sharing the screen because I want to talk to you about something that, again, is very, very important about what you are doing. And that is that it is really, really necessary that we get this feedback back to these students as quickly as possible. I'm going to say a week or less, even a couple of days. Remember how exciting it was when you take a test and you want to know immediately how you did? Well, these students are so excited. They've finished this, they've turned it in, they are motivated to start the next module. And they can't do that until they get our feedback and we pass them off. So if it takes us 2 weeks or longer to get back to them, they lose momentum and they are quitting. And as I said earlier, Getting our new professionals in and out of school is so important to us, but getting them out into the industry not prepared and competent is not going to help us. We really need them doing the stellar job that court reporters are known for in this industry, and this is how you help. So, if you've got a busy schedule and they ask you to review and you know you can't get it out in a couple of days, please decline and say, could you please get someone else to do this one? Hit me up for the next one because I want to make sure that I do right by this student. Or if you've accepted one and then you get an appeal transcript that's 5,000 pages, or life just happens. We know how that goes. If you realize something's come up and that is going to cause an issue with you getting this out, reach back out to headquarters and ask them if they could get someone else to review this one while you get things back in order, and you will look forward to getting the next one when you are in a better situation to serve that candidate. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing this. If you have any questions, please reach out to me if there's anything that I can do to help you or to assist you or to answer for you. We have a new Career Launcher Help Desk. You can find that on Facebook, search for Career Launcher Help Desk, or reach out to me, Debbie Dibble. I am not hard to find, and I would love to hear from you. So again, from the bottom of my heart, I am so grateful to you for helping us make this opportunity possible for our new professionals and our recent graduates to be the amazing court reporters that they can be. And I thank you for doing this wonderful service. Thank you so very much.